up, move, do some activity, have some coffee, go back in, so that we're not spending long periods of time straining, sitting and straining on that pelvic floor. We want to avoid screens. So in today's smartphone world, if we take our phones in and we're watching these, often we're watching shows, screens, we're having some of the visual stimuli that can actually cause our muscles to kind of contract and tighten without realizing it. So we want to instead allow for a more peaceful space for us to have those bowel movements. Just know that it's normal to have a bowel movement 3 times a day or 3 times a week. So everybody's a little bit different on that scale. But with that said, the caveat is that our bowel movement should be smooth, soft, and formed kind of sausage shape. And so if you are not going very frequently, and then when you are going, you're having hard rocks, pebbles, kind of a hard, bumpy log type of stool, then it means that that body is backed up a little bit. That stool is hanging out in your colon for too long of a period of time. Your body is absorbing a lot of that liquid because it's hanging out there, and it means that we're not having as much regularity as we would like. With that said, a way to help that is hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. A good rule of thumb is whatever you weigh in pounds. If you cut that number in half, that's the minimum amount of ounces that you should be drinking per day. And if you are sweating or exercising, that number needs to increase. But that's just a good general rule of thumb. A lot of people as well really try to limit water intake because they're having some of that bladder leakage. And I just wanted to touch on this. Later in the day, it is fine to limit some of that fluid intake towards bedtime so that it's not waking you up. But if we limit water intake throughout the entire day, what it does is it makes our urine more highly concentrated. And if our urine is more highly concentrated, it really tends to irritate the lining of our bladder, and our body wants to get rid of it. The body's like, this is so irritating here, and we're actually more likely to have leakage. So if we can increase our water intake, we're gonna dilute that urine down just a bit. Our body is gonna be more comfortable holding that within our body, and we're going to possibly help with some of that leakage. Normal voiding for urine is every 2 to 4 hours. So if you're going more frequently than that, there may be something that we could work on for pelvic health physical therapy. So just going off this, you can find your success story. One kind of funny story, a couple years ago, I had worked with someone who had chronic constipation, and I was having difficulty emptying his bowels, going very infrequently. He was post-prostate surgery, but ran into him in the grocery store. And I find often that when I first meet people, it's maybe a little bit challenging sometimes to make people feel comfortable talking about their pelvic floor function. And maybe by the end of treatment, people are very comfortable talking about it, right? So I was at the grocery store in line. So he ran over. There's a big line of people, but he said, "Sammy, I am pooping every day, and they are these beautiful sausage poops." And I had to giggle, and people kind of giggled in line. But I just thought it was so wonderful that we broke down some of those barriers, those walls of talking about pelvic floor, and we normalized, hey, everybody has a pelvic floor. Everybody needs to work on this function. Okay, I wanted to put a little plug in here. So I'm over at CPR, and you may think, oh, she's just plugging her clinic. But I feel like this is really important for the community to know. So we offer free 15-minute screens where you can come in, you can talk one-on-one with a therapist, whether it's about pelvic floor physical therapy or any other region of the body. We treat, from head, neck, all the way to foot, ankle, toes, whatever it is. And sometimes people just don't know, is physical therapy really what I need? Am I a good candidate for physical therapy? So you can always call our office, come in for that free screen. Our office will help you understand, yes, this is a great place for you to be. Physical therapy can help, or we can help you find the correct provider if you need something that is beyond physical therapy. And sometimes with the pelvic health world, people really like to meet the therapist one-on-one and see, Okay, who would I be working with? Do I feel comfortable? Is this where I need to be? Could this even be helpful for me? So I just want to throw that out there. We have 2 locations in Twin Falls. One is in the Renaissance office. One is the Red Barn on Addison. You may see that. And then we have a Buell office as well. So feel free to call if you have questions to talk to one of us. Well, thank you so much for bearing with me through pelvic floor. You guys were a wonderful audience. And I hope that by having this discussion, you feel a bit more comfortable to talk to your friends, talk to your family, maybe help our community as a whole become healthier with this portion of pelvic floor health. So thank you so much.
Wasn't Sammy just fantastic? Great information for all of us. Thank you so much for your time and energy and for being here. Again, if you have questions specifically for Sammy, she'll be out in the lobby. I also wanted to remind you that we do have some food out there. However, try not to bring it back into the auditorium. It will be out in the lobby if you need to have a little pick-me-up, a little bit of a snack before our next presentation, who will be Sarah Rinaldi. We'll see you back here in 5 to 6 minutes. Thank you.
Testing, testing. Thank you.
Can you guys, oh, there we,
there
oh,
we are.
hi,
Okay.
hey,
Okay,
welcome
you're gonna have to hold that
back.
up to this guy.
All right, so time for our second drawing.
Okay, hold it up so I can't see in there.
Oh,
There
oh,
you
she said to hold it up. She's pretty tall though. I'm really short.
Oh, they're falling out the bottom.
Wait, I'll get these.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so the winner is
Debbie Snavely. Debbie Snavely. It's probably eating. We should have told them if they weren't in here, they'd miss out and we'd draw someone else, huh? Okay. All right, we're going to draw someone else. Okay, Laura Peterson. Laura Peterson. Ooh, she's at the snack table too? Holy Hannah. All right. Renee Ponton. All right, Renee. Good job. Way to be here, girl.
All right, everybody, welcome back. I would like to introduce our next presenter. This is Sarah Rinaldi. Please give Sarah a round of applause. Sarah grew up in a small town in North Idaho called Bonners Ferry. She attended the University of Idaho. Go Vandals! Yeah, where she obtained her bachelor's and master's degrees in human nutrition and dietetics. She has been a registered and licensed dietitian for over 20 years, has worked in various fields of nutrition, including as a clinical public health, long-term care, and wellness dietitian. She has been teaching full-time here at CSI in the Health Professions Department since 2018. Already? Wow. Her favorite part of teaching is getting to know her students and teaching them the science of nutrition. In her free time, she enjoys spending time outdoors and in the kitchen, go figure, with her family. So here's Sarah Rinaldi.
Thank you. All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. I feel like I'm glad I went third because I got to hear Monique talking about metabolism. And I also love metabolism. I tell my students that's the scariest chapter of our nutrition textbook, but it's my favorite because I'm kind of a nerd like that. And then Sammy's talking about poop and staying well hydrated, so that's right in my wheelhouse. So there's quite a bit of crossover that will come into play with Monique's presentation and Sammy's presentation. So I was asked to come and talk about nutrition, and nutrition is a big, wide open topic, right? I tell my students all the time, I'll mention something as a little side note, and I say, we could have somebody come and talk about this. We could probably make a whole class, a whole semester just about this one nutrition topic. So I chose today to focus in on the topic of nutrient density. And some of you might be familiar with the topic of nutrient density. This might be a new concept for some of you, but surely once I start talking about what is nutrient density and why do we care, this will probably resonate with a lot of you. So in my class, we talk a lot about nutrition. We have 16 chapters we cover over the semester. Chapter 18, which is the last chapter of the semester, right before finals, we are finishing up our unit on life cycle nutrition. So we start out talking about nutrition in general. We move into the science of nutrition and how to evaluate your nutrition sources. So how to look for red flags in nutrition. How to tell if something you're looking at about nutrition is evidence-based, because you all know, especially now with social media, the internet, TV, and everything being streamed immediately, there is so much information out there about nutrition, right? Has anybody ever read like 2 conflicting articles and been confused? Has anybody ever been confused? Yes. Okay, so I teach my students to really critically evaluate where the information is coming from, who's sponsoring it. We move into talking about the macronutrients, carbohydrates, fats, proteins. Then we talk about metabolism, vitamins and minerals, the micronutrients, and then life cycle nutrition. So the last chapter is nutrition for older adults. So there is an entire chapter about this. And so some of the information that I'm sharing with you today comes from the textbook, comes from the presentation I give to my students. First, I wanted to talk about kind of my soapbox. This is kind of what I feel like whenever I'm talking about food philosophy, okay? Why do we care about nutrition, and kind of my slant on it? We're then going to be talking about some of the nutrients of concern. So for the aging population, should we call it the wise? The wise, you know, we get wiser as we age. There are certain nutrients that we really want to focus on, and I feel like Monique, Dr. Middlecoff talked a lot about those too. What foods we really want to focus on, and how do we get these nutrient-dense foods in our diet. And then, because I thought you guys might be tired of hearing people talk to you, by this point in the day, I'm going to do a little food demonstration with 3 very nutrient-dense recipes you could have for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, okay? I also talk with my hands because I'm Italian, so I hope I don't rip this microphone off myself. Okay, so probably you've heard of this quote before. This is from Hippocrates, which is known as the founder of modern medicine. I was actually looking this up a little bit more, and it turns out there's actually no evidence of him actually saying this in any of his writings, which I thought was interesting. But I think the whole point of this is that Hippocrates recognized that what we eat has a direct effect on our health and our body, right? I tell my students a lot, I know it sounds corny, and I know your parents probably used to tell you this, but food you eat is like fuel in a car, right? It really is, and it sounds cliche, but it's true. And like Dr. Middlecoff was saying, thinking of food as not necessarily medicine, because you know, medicine is medicine. A lot of you might take medicine for certain conditions, and medicine is definitely has a place, right? We need medicine sometimes. But if we can talk about eating good food, eating adequate, nutrient-dense foods, it really can have an effect on how we age and our overall health. I also have allergies, and Claritin makes my mouth so dry, so I don't have coughing fits, but I might need to drink water. Okay, I also found this little quote, and I don't know who this woman is. She's a writer, but I thought this was a nice quote. Eating healthy food fills your body with energy and nutrients. Imagine your cells smiling back at you and saying thank you. So my soapbox, food philosophy, I feel like in this day and age, you know, with all this access to nutrition information, a lot of the times I feel that we are bombarded with the negative when it comes to food, right? Especially women, but of course some men fall into these pressures as well, where we have to cut things out, right? Diet. Diet is actually just, if you look up the word diet in the dictionary, it's the way that someone eats. But diet tends to take on a negative connotation sometimes, right? I ask my students what they think of when they think of diet, and they say restriction, cutting back, losing weight, right? And so weight is definitely one small piece of the puzzle if we are looking at health. I want you to think of health as like a 100-piece jigsaw puzzle, and weight is one piece of that, right? Certainly there's a correlation between what we weigh and certain chronic diseases, but it's one piece. So what Dr. Aschenbrenner and Dr. Middlecoff talked about today, another piece. They actually had a lot of pieces within their presentation, right? Sleep and stress. And I know somebody is talking to us next about financial wellness. So all part of the puzzle, nutrition also has a big role in this. So I really talk to my students about food is awesome. Food is great. We need food to survive, right? As Monique talked about, we take in the macronutrients, carbohydrates, fat, and protein, and our body converts it to usable energy, ATP, that we use to exist, right? That we use to run our body and survive. And so I always tell people food is great. We use food to celebrate, right? Good or bad, we can use food to celebrate, help us feel better. That's why they call it comfort food. We can use food to celebrate happy things. And we have, how many of you think that you have cultural ties to your food, right? Like family things that make you feel close to your family and tradition. So food is awesome. We need food. Food is not something to fear, okay? Food is something that can really help our bodies to thrive, and especially as we age, it's even more important. And food is awesome, and the human body is awesome. So we just got done talking about digestion in my nutrition class, and it's always amazing to me how our human body can take food, right, in its raw form, and we break it down. Each macronutrient is broken down differently. We metabolize it differently, and it is providing us with different things that we need to run our body, our muscles. We can make hormones, and we make enzymes, and brain tissues, heart tissues, all of these amazing things that food does for us, okay? And our body is wonderful. So I want you guys to think of food in a positive way, not as restriction. You see these crazy fad diets that are encouraging you to cut out complete food groups. We get something different from all the food groups. And as we're talking today, you're gonna see food from every food group in my presentation and in my recipe demos as well, right? So food's great. Food positivity. On that note, there are some age-related physiological changes in the human body which can affect our nutritional status as we age. And this is not being ageist or anything else. This is just, it's good to know what happens to our body as we age, right? Because once we know it's happening, if we're prepared, then we can make some little adjustments to help with some of these things. So I'm not sure how well you all can see this, but I'll kind of go through this with you. So on the left there, this has the body system in question. And then over on the right, it talks about some of the changes that happen as we age, all right? So our digestive tract, talking about digestion, we tend to get, this is like what I have right now, reduced saliva because of my Claritin, but you produce less saliva as we age. So saliva is important for several reasons. It helps to moisten and lubricate our food, make it easier to swallow. Saliva also has some digestive enzymes that start breaking down the macronutrients, carbohydrate, and fats. In our stomach, we have something called intrinsic factor, and it is produced in the stomach, and it helps us to absorb a vitamin called vitamin B12 from our food, which is really important for our blood health and our nervous system. And so as we age, we produce less of that intrinsic factor. We also, some of you might have experienced heartburn before. Sammy was just talking about constipation, okay? How many of you knew that our taste buds decline as we get older? Did you guys know that? Two of the last taste buds to remain are, what do you think? What are the last things that you can still taste? Salt and sweet. You guys got it. My grandma lived to be 96, so hopefully I have some good genes. But she was always a really healthy eater, but the last few years, my parents would go grocery shopping for her, and she'd be like, I want Danishes and ice cream and apple pie, because those are the foods she still got enjoyment out of, right? So our taste buds are reduced, we might have a delayed swallowing rate, so there are digestive issues at play which can interfere with the way we eat and our nutritional status. Our integumentary system, which is our hair, our skin, and our nails, there is a decreased efficiency of vitamin D synthesis from sun exposure, so we synthesize less in our skin, and we also are unable to convert to the active form of vitamin D in our kidney and our liver as well as we did when we were younger. So vitamin D will be one of our nutrients of concern that we're going to talk about. Musculoskeletal system, both of our previous speakers really alluded to this, right? We have decreased osteoblast activity, which are the cells in our bones that help build our skeletal tissue. We can lose teeth, which can make it hard to eat. we can have increased risk of bone fractures. So the older we get, if we fall, the more likelihood we are to experience a fracture. And then sarcopenia, which both of our previous speakers alluded to as well, that loss of muscle mass, which we really want to prevent if we can. That is one of the keys to healthy aging. And then they also talked about immunity, right? So we do have reduced functioning of that lymphatic system as we age, which makes us a little more susceptible to certain types of infections and certain types of cancer. And then endocrine system, some of you might have experienced a loss of thyroid hormone. You might have been diagnosed with hypothyroidism, which can affect our metabolic rate. So I feel like this slide might be a little gloom and doom, but we can all acknowledge that this is happening, but there are things we can do to counteract this, right? If we know it's gonna happen, some nutrients we can focus on. So focusing on, as we heard from our previous presenters, about physical activity, right? And making sure we're moving to prevent some of these things. That's one piece of the puzzle, and then again, how we eat can really make a big change. Okay, so here are some nutrients of concern for the older population. And as I was doing this research and reading through the textbook, the definition of an older adult has kind of, it depends on where you look. The dietary guidelines for Americans, which are put out by the Department of Health and Human Services and the U.S. Department of Agriculture, they have a separate section in the dietary guidelines, the ones that came out in 2020, for individuals 51 to 70. They have their own recommendations for the dietary guidelines, and then also age 71 plus. And the Census Bureau, our favorite people, say 65 and older is an older adult. And then this is actually a term, this is not something I made up, the oldest old, 85 plus. I don't know if any of you in here are considered the oldest old, but it's not a bad thing. That's an amazing thing, okay, 85 plus. And the older population is increasing a lot. So in 1900, we go back to 1900, anybody have a guess on what percent of the population in 1900 lived to be 65? Okay, I heard 40, 35, 15. In 1900, only 3% of the population was 65 and older. So advances in public health, medicine, right? Nutrition, all these things, we are living longer. So in 2015, it was 15%. Still not as much as you might think. They estimate that in 2050, it will be about 22% of the population. And the oldest old is one of the most rapidly growing age groups in the United States, okay? So we need to talk about how we can live older, yes, but live to be healthier also. Because I think most of you can agree that if you're going to live to be older, you want to be healthy, right? We want to feel good and our best. So some of these nutrients of concern are ones that research has shown tend to be an issue as we tend to age. So protein is a big one. So I read a study that nearly 50% of people over 70 don't get enough protein every day. Okay, this might surprise some of you. There's different reasons, taste buds, maybe condition of teeth, maybe socioeconomics. Meat can be more expensive, right? So we talk about making sure you get enough quality protein at each meal instead of just kind of snacking all day, like Dr. Middlecoff was saying, getting quality meals, 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal. And we'll talk about high quality protein and some good types of protein to focus on. Vitamin D, we kind of alluded to that. We live in the northern hemisphere, obviously, and in Idaho especially, fall and winter months, even if you were to go outside, let's say it's sunny, which I feel like doesn't happen here a whole lot in the fall and winter, but you go outside, it's a sunny day, because of the relationship to where we are from the sun, even if, this is like, there's a lot of ifs, right? If it's sunny, if we're wearing short sleeves, their skin is exposed and we're not completely bundled up like we usually are in Idaho, you still wouldn't be able to synthesize enough vitamin D from the sun. And then, as we age, our liver and our kidneys, like I said, are not able to convert to the active form of vitamin D as efficiently. So vitamin D is one, we can make it, not here in Idaho, in the fall and winter, but we can make it when it's adequate sun. We also can get it from food. I'm not a big supplement pusher, but vitamin D, how many of you have had your vitamin D levels checked? Awesome. We already knew you were the A team, so it's not a surprise. If you haven't, next time you go in for your wellness test, ask about it. They can test your vitamin D levels. And how many of you are on a vitamin D supplement? Yeah, it is one, like I said, I'm not a big supplement pusher. I think a multivitamin every day is a good idea, kind of like an insurance policy, right, to fill in those gaps. But vitamin D is one that I feel pretty confident in saying most people, especially 65 plus, should be getting. Okay, we'll also talk about how to get it a little bit from food. Vitamin B12, which again, vitamin B12 is found in a lot of these high protein foods. So that is one we tend not to get enough of because we're not getting enough protein, and also that decreased intrinsic factor production in our stomach. So that is something that we want to focus on. A lot of you, I think once you hit 65, they might start testing for vitamin B12 levels as well. When they check iron levels, they kind of go hand in hand. And then calcium, of course, is a big one. Calcium is related to what? Bones, our bones and our teeth. And we want to make sure we're getting enough calcium. Calcium and vitamin D go hand in hand. Vitamin D increases calcium absorption, so it is important. So sodium, unlike these other nutrients of concern, which we're concerned about because we're not getting enough, do you think we tend to get not enough or too much? Yes, we tend not to get enough of these others, but sodium is one. It's kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum. The research shows that older adults, older individuals tend to get, when those foods that are high in sodium, they're also high in saturated fat, refined carbohydrate, low in fiber, so they tend to be foods that we want to try to limit versus some of these other foods we want to actually get more of. Potassium. Potassium is found in, it's another electrolyte. It's found in vegetables and fruits and some legumes and nuts as well. Older adults, particularly a nutrient of concern. And then we have fiber. So dietary fiber is really good for us. So it can help do a lot of things. Dietary fiber is found in plant-based foods, right? So it's found in whole grains and vegetables and the skin of fruits and beans and nuts and all of these good, nutritious, nutrient-dense plant-based foods. It can help keep us regular, so we don't want to be constipated. Not good for our appetite, not good for our pelvic floor, we have learned. I learned something new today. And it can also help to keep our good cholesterol high and our bad cholesterol low. What else? It can help stabilize our blood sugars. Fiber really is a nutrient that we can really focus on getting more of. Recommendations, depending on your age and your height and your weight, male, female, 28 to 35 grams of fiber, and the research shows that most people only get about 15. So fiber's one we really want to focus on for many reasons. And then water. Water is, when we talk about the macronutrients are carbs, fat, protein. They are the ones that provide us with energy or calories. We can convert them to ATP to fuel our cells. And then the micronutrients are vitamins and minerals. They don't provide us with energy, but they help with the metabolic, catabolic, and anabolic processes in our metabolism. And water kind of is in its own category. It's not a macronutrient because it doesn't have calories in it, but it also is very, very important. Actually, it's the most important, right? We would dehydrate to death much quicker than we would starve to death. I know that's cheery, but water is super important. It makes up early adult to mid-adult, about 60% of our body by weight is water. By the time you get to 70, it's decreased to about 50%. So there's some different reasons for that. Just our body mass changes. So muscle can hold onto water more than fat. Fat is hydrophobic. So when our body mass is made up of more fat and less muscle, so again, that goes to that sarcopenia, we have less water. Our kidneys, as we age, tend to excrete more water and not hold on to as much water. If anybody has ever been on a diuretic medication, certain medications increase our urine production, and they actually make us less thirsty. And just as a natural process of aging, we don't have the same thirst sensation that we do when we're younger, which I found is interesting. So we have less hormonally, you need to drink, you need to drink, you need to drink. So dehydration can be very common. And that's something we want to try to counteract by making sure we're getting enough fluids, right? So nutrient density defined. So the dietary guidelines for Americans come out every 5 years. So the first time we kind of heard of this concept of nutrient density was when they came out in 2015. And this might be a little hard to read, so I will read it. So the dietary guidelines in 2015 defined nutrient-dense foods: all vegetables, fruits, whole grains, seafood, eggs, beans, and peas, unsalted nuts and seeds, fat-free and low-fat dairy products, and lean meats and poultry, when prepared with little to no added solid fats, added sugars, refined starches, and sodium, aka salt, are nutrient-dense foods, right? 2020, they actually came out in 2021 because of the pandemic. Here is the 2020 dietary guideline, definition of nutrient-dense foods. Similar, but a little different. Nutrient-dense foods provide vitamins, minerals, and other health-promoting components and have little or no added sugars, saturated fat, and sodium. Okay, so pretty similar there. You notice some similarities in the food groups discussed. So they have vitamins, they have minerals, they can have macronutrients, but with little addition of some of those components, such as added sugar, saturated fat, and salt. Right? So we're going to look at these a little more detail. I always like pictures. I'm a visual learner, so I like when I can see a picture. So this is what that just said, right? Except for it is in cute cartoon format, which I always appreciate. So you have whole grains there. So I'm sure all of you know this, but whole grains have all parts of the grain, right? So they have the bran, which is the outside of the grain, and then they have the germ, which is like the seed, the inside of the grain, and the endosperm. So they use all parts when they make flour or corn or oatmeal, versus a refined, which means they take off the bran, they take out the germ, and they refine it. Okay, so choosing whole grains, you don't have to, not every grain you have has to be a whole grain, but the dietary guidelines recommends to try and choose whole grains about half the time. So who can name a whole grain besides whole wheat bread? Oats. Who else? Quinoa. Yeah. Corn. Yep. Lots of whole grains that we can have. And compared to like 10 years ago, we find whole grains much more readily available in the grocery stores now. It used to be hard to find quinoa. Now you can find it pretty much anywhere, right? Low-fat milk and dairy, and that is because of the calcium, and they're usually fortified with vitamin D. We'll talk about alternatives if you cannot handle milk here in a couple more slides. Fruits and vegetables. I have friends who are dietitians who are actually research healthy aging. They both had mothers who passed away of Alzheimer's disease, And so they travel around to the blue zones. Have you guys heard of the blue zones? It's where people live in high numbers to be centenarians, or over 100. And they're from Boise. They've written books about healthy aging and foods to incorporate. And they always say it should be vegetables and fruit, not fruits and vegetables. Because vegetables are even more, have some of these really great for us, good for us nutrients. Beans and peas, lean meats, poultry, fish, and eggs, and then nuts and seeds, okay? And when we're making them without a bunch of added fat, sugar, or sodium. So I'm sure you've seen the plate before. So again, looking visually, trying to get enough protein at every meal, making sure it's a lean protein, vegetables and fruits, fiber-rich carbohydrates, so those complex carbohydrates that are going to have a lot of fiber in them versus refined carbohydrates. Healthy fats, okay? Healthy fats are super important. We'll be talking about that more here in a minute. And then down there I have some sort of a calcium source and then water, okay? So balancing your plate to include all of these. I had to throw this in here somewhere because I love this. This is the avocado affirmation. You're fat, but you're the good fat. It's like looking himself in the mirror every day. I love that. So some nutrient-dense superstars, so some foods that we know when we add them into our diet, they're gonna provide us with energy, right? We can make ATP, we can metabolize them, but they're also providing us with other stuff, other things that are really good for our body. So citrus fruits and berries, high amount of antioxidants. We could have a whole talk on antioxidants, but basically they can be protective to our cells from damage that might happen from environmental factors that we are all exposed to. They also have lots of fiber, which we've already talked about is great. Vitamin C. They can add natural sweetness, because we all need a little sweetness in our life, right? So fruits can be a really good way to sweeten things up. Green leafy veggies and cruciferous vegetables. What is a cruciferous vegetable? Broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, and then the green leafy, we all know those, right? Kale, collard greens, spinach, lots of different leafy green veggies. So really, really good for us. They can help calm inflammation, some anti-inflammatory properties that are really healthy for us. Legumes, so legumes are like bean seeds that are in a row, so like a pea, a soybean, lentils here in Idaho, we see a lot of lentils. A good source of fiber, plant-based protein, and potassium and calcium. So some of the nutrients of concern you're seeing in here, right? So adding these foods in are going to counteract some of those nutrients of concern that we need to add more of. Lean protein, so they're gonna be a good source of that B12, right? Which is important. Zinc has a role in our immune system. So lean proteins, things without a lot of saturated fat. No skin on the chicken, on the turkey, even pork, certain cuts of pork can qualify as lean meats. Low-fat dairy. So dairy is important because it's a really good source of calcium and vitamin D. If you are someone who cannot tolerate dairy milk, there are plant-based milk alternatives. You just want to make sure when you're looking at the nutrition label of those that they are fortified with calcium and vitamin D. They're not going to have as much protein as dairy, but you can get protein elsewhere and you can get that calcium and vitamin D in a plant-based milk alternative. Fatty fish. This was my pun. These do swimmingly well at providing us with essential omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3 fatty acids are in fatty fish. They're also we can find them in plant-based sources, so those nuts and seeds down here are also really good sources of omega-3 fatty acids. Basically, they're brain healthy fats. They can help maintain our cell membranes, including our nervous system tissue, our brain tissue. Really good for us. There is some promising research on omega-3 fatty acids and prevention of certain types of dementias. I do want to mention when we're talking about all of these nutrients, we know research shows that we digest these nutrients better, we can absorb them better, and they help us better if we get them in food format versus supplements. Sometimes we need supplements, right? But if we can get nutrients from food, our body knows the difference. So getting vitamin C from an orange and some berries, or getting omega-3s from some nuts and seeds and fish, our body is going to absorb and use those nutrients better versus if we're getting them from pill form. Make sense? Okay, it's just, the body's smart, right? We know the difference. And then whole grains, we've already talked a lot about whole grains, have a lot of B vitamins, they are really good sources of fiber, and carbohydrates, which is where we get energy, right? How we do our metabolic processes. Okay, so my cinematographer, Michael Crane, is going to switch us so you guys can see what I'm doing up here. So we have 3 nutrient-dense recipes, which we are going to make today. And you guys got these recipes when you came in. Jamie made beautiful little copies of all of them. So the first one is going to be apple cinnamon overnight oats. How many of you have made overnight oats before of some kind? Yeah, they're really good. Do you need my help with anything? Nope, you can go ahead and switch it. Overnight oats are kind of weird. You have to get used to eating them cold, but you can heat them up. It's just too weird for you. My husband's like, why would I want to have cold oatmeal? I'm like, it's good. You should try it. So we're going to do overnight oats. We have a Greek chicken salad in a mason jar, which is kind of fun and trendy. You could also do it in a Tupperware. It's fine, or just do it in a bowl. But I kind of like it because it's fun. And then we're going to do anybody speak French here? You do? We? Okay, I practiced this. Salmon en papillote. Does that sound right? En papillote. Or salmon in parchment. So it's a good way to cook fish that's easy, because I feel like a lot of the times fish is kind of like a hard one to cook, at least for me. I could cook chicken or whatever, but fish is a little trickier. They say the recommendations are to get, they moved it up actually, 3 to 4 servings of fatty fish per week. That's hard to get, but we can always be working towards it, right? So just little small shifts you can do. Okay, so the first one are these apple cinnamon overnight oats. So you get a mason jar. This one is like 12 ounces. You can also do this in a Tupperware, obviously. I'm probably gonna make a mess. We're gonna put the oats in there. So those are whole grain oats, right? We're gonna add these in. This is, I really like this for those of you who can have dairy milk. This is, have you guys ever had ultra filtered milk? Anybody tried this? So they put it through this special, and this is just one kind. They don't pay me. I wish I was sponsored, but I'm not. It is, they put it through this special filterization, I don't know if that's a word, process. And it increases the protein. It takes out the lactose. So if you're lactose intolerant, sometimes as we age, the amount of lactose we produce, lactase is an enzyme found in the brush border of our small intestines, and sometimes as we age, we don't make as much lactase. So even if you used to be able to tolerate milk, sometimes you can't as we age. So this is really good because they take the lactase out, and then it has more protein. So it's called ultra-filtered milk. This is reduced fat, but they do have fat-free as well. So I just added equal parts, so half a cup, and then I'm gonna add these goody things first. So I have some toasted walnuts, really good omega-3s, cinnamon, which adds a little sweetness. This is ground flaxseed. So the you need it ground up so that you can use the fats that are in it. If you eat flax seeds whole, they'll just come out the other end as whole flax seeds. Our digestive tract can't break them down. They'll help you poop, but you're not gonna be getting the really good fats. Chia seeds and flax seeds, really good plant sources of omega-3 fats. I know your recipe card says craisins or raisins, but I actually didn't have any at home, so I just am using dried blueberries instead of craisins. So you guys can switch this up as you want to and add whatever kind of fruits, nuts, you can add pecans, you can add pepitas. You guys know what pepitas are? Pumpkin seeds, yeah. A little bit of maple syrup. This is pure maple syrup, just a tablespoon. You could use honey, you could eliminate it if you want, but I like the little sweetness it adds. This is a little vanilla extract. And then we're gonna see if we can fit the apples in. Ooh. So you can blend it all up. Maybe you need a bigger jar, but we're gonna get it mixed up in there. The chia seeds will kind of swell and make it really thick and good. So you mix that up, and then you can put the lid on, and you wanna let that sit overnight. You can also mix stuff like this too, to make sure all the oats get mixed with the milk and the seeds. And this is really great, great breakfast. If you're gonna make one, you can make more, so you can have them for breakfast all week. So that's that one, good breakfast. Next one is a Greek mason jar salad, and you have the recipe for the Greek dressing here. So I already made this ahead of time. It is olive oil, you could also use avocado oil, garlic, oregano, basil. Dijon acts as the emulsifier, which helps keep the oil and vinegar suspended, and you can mix that up. I like doing it just in one of these, and you can shake it. And we're gonna add a couple tablespoons of that. This makes enough for about 4. And then you're just gonna layer stuff in. There's really no particular order. I realized that I did put it in order on the recipe. You kind of just wanna do the heavier stuff on the bottom. So lots of veggies, some garbanzo beans, AKA chickpeas. This is some shredded white meat rotisserie chicken. You could use all beans, different kind of beans if you don't eat chicken. Kalamata olives, this makes it Greek. Red onions. Obviously, you can switch it up and use whatever kind of veggies you want. Feta cheese, a little low-fat feta cheese to give us a little bit of that salty flavor. And then, are you noticing a common thing here that I'm running out of room? But you can also get a little bigger of a jar. Then you fill it up. This is romaine, but you could use kale, you could use spinach, whatever you want. You put as much in there as you can, and then you put a lid on it. And again, you can do multiple. Isn't that pretty? I don't know if you can see it. Very pretty, right? And this is very portable. Then you can throw it into a big bowl and have it for lunch or dinner. Any of these would work for any meals, really, right? And last thing, I know I'm out of time, but we're gonna demonstrate the salmon and papillote. Salmon and parchment. So this is just a piece of parchment paper. Your directions say to cut it into an oval, but nobody has time for that, so we're just gonna put it on in a square. You guys see what I'm doing? So we're going to layer some veggies. Again, this is really a versatile cooking method because you can use different vegetables. This was, I know I didn't put this on my handout, but it was adapted from a New York Times recipe that I found. So we're gonna put some zucchini, we're gonna put some asparagus, and before I put the fish on, we're gonna do a little salt, pepper, and dried dill. But again, you can use whatever kinds of herbs you want. I'm gonna put a little olive oil in here. This happens to be like garlic infused olive oil, so it adds a little garlic flavor. Then we're gonna put the salmon on top. We're gonna try to make sure it stays all together. Then we're gonna put some lemons on the top. You can find salmon very inexpensively. A lot of the times, you can even get the frozen salmon, so it doesn't go bad. So we're just gonna put a little more salt, pepper, and some olive oil on top. This healthy fat actually helps us to absorb the fat-soluble vitamins found in the veggies of the salmon. So then you're gonna just go along. This is gonna sound awful on the microphone, but you just fold up the sides to make a package. And you're just doing it so it seals it, so that when you put it into the oven, it will steam. So as it cooks, it creates steam. You can also do this with chicken breast. You can do it with lots of different meats. Shrimp, scallops. So you get it all sealed really good. You crimp the edges, then you just put that in the oven, 375 for about 15 minutes. And then when you take it out, it all steams. So the zucchini cooks, the asparagus, and the salmon, it should be flaky when you take it out. And it's just kind of nice because then you can just throw that packet out, and it's really easy cleanup. And it's very foolproof because I have problems cooking fish, but this en papillote is a really good method to cook. So, and you can obviously double it, quadruple it if you're any of these. If you want more for the rest of the week, you can double, triple, quadruple, easy, and most of all of these ingredients pretty inexpensive as well. So, I was 2 minutes over. And that's it. 2 minutes is not bad, right? Jamie knows I could talk for a long time. And just like Monique and Sam, you guys can always email me as well with questions. I have lots of connections I can get you in touch with if you want to know more, need somebody to talk to about your specific needs. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was lovely. Thanks so much. Sarah is a fantastic coworker. She's so knowledgeable in anything nutrition. If you have any questions, you can reach through me to her, and we can also, she'll be out in the lobby, and you can ask her specific questions. We're going to do a little switch with Matt, but before you leave, I think I figured this out. We're going to do the raffle before you leave. Okay, yes, it took me just 3 times, but third time's a charm. So hang on for just a second. We'll do the raffle. Here comes our cute raffle people. And Blue Cross will also come up and do their basket raffle as well. So hang tight.
All right, here we go, our last winner.
Hold it up there, girl. Is Bob Forster.
Does someone want to run out and get Camille with Blue Cross to do her raffle real quick?
Okay, everybody, this is for the raffle drawing for that Halloween basket out there for the Blue Cross of Idaho. So I'm just mixing them all up. And I didn't bring my cheater glasses, so that's fun. Speaking of it, okay. Okay, and the winner is Renee Pontone. Are you here? Yay! Yay, congratulations, Renee. I'll go run around it down to you.
Sweet.
I'll just go ahead and introduce you real quick.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
are you good?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're we're a little bit behind, so I'm just gonna go ahead and get started.
Okay.
You're okay with that?
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I'll wrap it up quick if we need to.
No, you don't need to.
Okay.
No, we're just gonna go ahead and get started. Okay, all right. Let's introduce our last presenter, but not least, is Matt Gelta. I want to make sure I said his last name correctly. Matt is a financial advisor with Edward Jones Investments. He is also one of only 2 certified exit planning advisors in the Magic Valley. Prior to joining Edward Jones, Matt served as a police officer, founded a marketing and consulting firm, and held an Idaho real estate license. He has his bachelor's degree in business administration and is currently pursuing an MBA in finance. Earlier in his life, he spent a couple of years living abroad and is fluent in Spanish. I didn't know that. And his free time, Matt enjoys being a father to a very active 5-year-old and loves riding motorcycles with his son and spending a lot of times outdoors, hunting, fishing, as much as possible. So Matt and his wife, Alexa, are currently working to expand their family by adopting internationally from India. That's great. So please welcome Matt to the stage.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie. You hear me okay? We're good? Perfect. So thanks for everyone being here today and hanging out this long. I know it's been a long day, but a lot of good information. So I want to start off today by asking a few questions. And please, if you're comfortable, raise your hand for me so I can kind of get a feel. If you're not, just think about them. But how many people in this room have ever struggled or felt like they've struggled financially? Okay. How many have ever had the fear of one day in the future running out of money? Okay. How many have been or currently are worried about being a financial burden on their loved ones in the future? Okay, so as you can see, a lot of us are in the same boat. I appreciate you sharing that with me. Like Jamie said, my name is Matt Gelta. I'm a financial advisor here in Twin Falls with Edward Jones Investments. My goal, and the reason why I do what I do, is I believe nobody should have to struggle financially. Nobody should ever worry about running out of money, and nobody should ever have to feel like a burden on anybody else. So I became a financial advisor for a lot of reasons. And those reasons go way back to my roots. So a little bit more about my backstory. I grew up outside of Los Angeles, California. As a young kid, my parents got divorced, which left me and my brother kind of bouncing between our 2 homes of our mother and our father. Both my parents worked many jobs to provide for us. So finances and struggling financially was a reality for our family my entire life. So that led me down the path of wanting to be financially educated, to know how to provide for my future family and to make sure that my future children never had to have some of the same struggles that I felt growing up. Fast forward a little bit, and I became a police officer. My father was a police officer, so I followed in those footsteps, and that was my first career. As a police officer, I worked in the city of Los Angeles for a couple of years. After doing that for a little bit, I moved up here to Twin Falls with my wife and transferred to the Twin Falls Police Department. Working for Twin Falls, I served on the SWAT team and worked patrol for several years, and I love this community. I love the people here. I love working and serving and helping other people have a better life. So now that you know a little bit more about me, let's jump into why we're here today. Our discussion today centers on retirement, and how do we elevate that to have a more meaningful retirement or a higher quality of life. So we know that retirement is changing for the generations. And how do we know that? Edward Jones partnered with a company called AgeWave and produced a 9,000 participant survey across the United States and Canada. The results of this were a little bit eye-opening to us, and that's what led us to develop what we are calling the 4 pillars of the new retirement. So during the survey, we asked people, how do you define retirement? So take a second and think about this for yourself. How do you define retirement for yourself? Looking at the circle above, which hopefully we can all see, 22% of people define retirement as a time for rest and relaxation. 15% said it was merely a continuation of what life was before. and 8% of people believe that retirement was the beginning of the end. I don't like that, that viewpoint of it. But what we're going to focus on today is the gold section. That 55% of people in our survey believe retirement to be a whole new chapter of life. For them, retirement brings new choices, new freedoms, freedoms from many of the obligations they had before, and freedom to do the new opportunities and pursue new things. There's many reasons behind this new definition of retirement. Increased lifespans, new technology, higher quality of life are all influence people's viewpoint to see retirement time as a new opportunity to experience life. So the big takeaway, going to give you all the information right here, is this. The 4 pillars of retirement now, the new retirement that the world is going to, focus on health, family, purpose, and finances. No matter what the next chapter looks like, these 4 essential pillars are involved. Our research found that retirees that report having a higher quality of life are twice as likely to grade themselves highly across each of these 4 pillars. In other words, if you strengthen these 4 pillars of your life, you'll elevate your overall quality of life. It's amazing how intertwined these 4 pillars really are, and we'll start to see that as we go through each one step by step. But both of them, or all of them, take both thought and action to make sure that we have them as strong as possible. So let's start by looking at our health pillar. The presentations before me today have been phenomenal, talking about different aspects of our health and giving us lots of tips like those recipes that look delicious about how we can be healthier. I think it's important to define for each of us, what does it mean to be healthy? So take a second and think about that. For you individually, what does health even mean? For you to be healthy, how do you define that? Our research showed us that 9 out of 10 adults age 50 and older, define being healthy as, quote, being able to do the things they want to do. So physically and mentally, being able to do the things they want to do, they qualified themselves as healthy. Here's what I think is really interesting, though. Nearly all retirees, 96%, say in order to live well in retirement, their health is more important than their wealth. So again, 96% of people believe that health is more important than wealth. So we know health is the most important. It is more important than your wealth. We also know that these things are intertwined. People who have more financial resources are able to invest more into their health. And those in poor health, no matter how wealthy they are, aren't able to enjoy a life that wealth can provide. So there's the connection between both pillars. We need our health to be able to enjoy our wealth, but we also need some wealth to be able to invest into our health. Now, when we talk about health and retirement, we talk about both physical and mental health. On this graph, we see both, our physical and our mental health across different generations. On the left side, we see our physical health, which obviously we know one of the negative side effects of being human is the older we get, the more our health tends to decline. But something very interesting is if we look at the mental health side, the older we tend to get, the more our mental health tends to increase. We become more mentally savvy as we age. This increase in mental health is even further emphasized when we look at how different generations reacted to the COVID-19 pandemic. So we asked the respondents if they had ever suffered a mental health decline since the pandemic, and this is how they responded. So it seems that the older we are, the more we're able to have a long-term viewpoint. We're able to see things as happening to us right now doesn't mean that it's going to happen to us forever. The younger generations, as they went through the COVID pandemic, had a much shorter viewpoint of it. What was reality now was reality forever and very hard mentally for them. But here's what's really surprising for us. We asked these retirees what illness, disease, condition, or anything frightened them the most. And since we did this survey right in the middle of the pandemic, we expected it to be COVID, but we were completely wrong. People are far more worried about losing their memories and their ability to think and relate and connect with others than they are of any other illness or condition. At Edward Jones, we're the official corporate sponsor of the Alzheimer's Foundation. So we're applying this research we conducted with partnership with the Alzheimer's Foundation to enhance our research and our ability to help those maintain their mental stability longer into their life. So no matter what our physical or mental health challenges, issues might be, people are living longer. A person, unfortunately, can expect to spend at least 10 years of their life living in what would be reported as poor health. And the number one financial concern in retirement is the rising cost of healthcare. Based on a 2019 study, the average couple will need to save $440,000 to pay for rising health care, long-term care, and medical expenses in their retirement years. So being healthier can, in fact, make us wealthier. The healthier we are, the less we have to spend on those things. The more we focus on our health pillar, the more we actually increase our financial pillar as well. So people tend to easily see the connection between good health and an elevated quality of life. We all know if we're healthier, we tend to have a higher quality of life and be able to be active and enjoy the things we like to do. 93% of retirees agree that it's never too late to start increasing or improving our health. Part of the reason we're all here today, part of the Active Aging Summit, is to elevate our lives through being healthy and being active. But knowing this and doing something about it are two completely different things. Only about half of retirees report that they maintain an active or a healthy lifestyle, or even exercise regularly. So specifically consider these actions. On the graph behind me, the dark blue shows those who report having an excellent quality of life, who self-report to really enjoy the things that they do. The light blue shows those who report to have an okay quality of life, or poor even. Thinking of yourself and reading through these different aspects of our health, what can we really focus on? What can really help you increase your life? Where's a good starting point of focusing on just one goal of what you can implement? For me personally, as I look through this, the first thing that stands out to me is getting enough sleep. As I mentioned earlier, I was a police officer. As a police officer, you get no sleep. You get very poor sleep. You're always on a constant schedule. I worked night shift for about 5 years of my career. When I wasn't working night shift, I was working a rotating schedule, so my sleep schedule always shifted. Being on this side of it and outside of law enforcement and looking back, I can see how that affected me. Frankly, I'm surprised my wife even tolerated me, because having sleep for me is a quick way to become grumpy and angry and have a very low quality of life. On the other side of it, making a job transition for me was very difficult. Sometimes when we make big transitions in life, from working to retirement, or not being married to being married, or for me going from one career to a very different career, mentally it was very draining. It was very hard on me. And so for that, I had to find some of these other aspects to help me. One of the bottom ones is practicing mindfulness and meditation, which for me I found was very helpful working through those changes in my life. So let's move on to a pillar that we all know, I'm sure we would all agree, is going to be one of the most important, which is our family. But take a second and think about, how do you define your family? What is family to you? When we ask that question, 1/3 of the people defined family as the people related to them by blood, marriage, or legal adoption. The other portion, the majority, as represented here by the gold on the circle, define their family as the people I love and care for. So this might include an honorary aunt or uncle, a best friend that's been friends with you for decades, somebody that everybody knows is part of your inner circle. For me, as I mentioned before, my family got divorced when I was really young. My stepmom came into my life when I was probably 3 or 4, far back that I can't remember life without her. On my stepmom's side, she was the first one born in this country. The rest of her family was born in Ecuador, so I have a very large Hispanic family. Of those members of my family, I have my Tia Rosa. Now, Tia Rosa has been at every family event I've ever been to. She's been there since the beginning. She's always bought me presents, she's always loved me, and I've always, thought of her as my aunt. She was about the same age as my grandma. I figured they were sisters. I didn't know anything different. Well, it wasn't until I was into my 20s that I was talking to my cousins, and they had to explain to me that Tia Rosa wasn't actually part of our family. She had worked with my grandma, helping in the home, helping take care of my mom and her brothers and sisters, helping clean the house, and had worked so long for my grandma that she started coming to family events to help clean up after, which turned to just coming to family events to be part of the family. And she was so ingrained with our family that for me, for 20 years, believed that she was my aunt. And to this day, I still call her Tia Rosa. She loves me, I love her, and for us, she's part of our family. So family can take on a lot of meanings. It doesn't only have to be the people we're actually blood related to. So family, however you define it, is one of the most substantial pillars that we have. So Linda Fried is a nationally recognized leader in the field of geriatrics, and she reinforces this principle for us by defining it as positive, meaningful, and supportive relationships with family and friends are critical to the quality of life and health in retirement. So the more positive and impactful relationships we have with either our family or our friends will elevate our quality of life in our retirement years, specifically in what would be our geriatric years, as Linda describes it. Most retirees will also rally in support of family members no matter what the cost is. 7 out of 10 people in retirement said that they would offer financial support to a family member even if it would jeopardize their own financial future. But far too often, family members, both parents and adult children, fail to accurately plan for these situations. If something happens that we have to now step up and help a loved one, how is that going to affect our financial future? These are all things that we should think about and plan for before. Because while retirees are eager to help their loved ones, they're far less likely to reach out for help themselves. 72% of retirees said that one of their biggest fears, as we expressed today asking that question, seeing many of your hands raised, is becoming a financial burden on their families. So while they're so eager to help their loved ones, I know, personal example, I know I could call any of my grandmothers right now and they would do anything for me. And I would hope that my grandmothers would know if they needed anything, they could call me and I would do anything for them. But I know that call is a lot less likely to happen. So oftentimes, we associate the COVID-19 pandemic with only the negative things that occurred. But there were some silver linings during that time. One of these is 67% of Americans said that this pandemic that we all lived through brought their families closer together. With being closer together, that led to almost 30 million families having very much needed end-of-life discussions with their loved ones. An end-of-life discussion isn't anything we choose or we really want to have. It's not an exciting topic to discuss. However, as a financial advisor, I believe it's absolutely crucial. There's going to be a plan for the things you leave behind, your estate, your assets, money, whatever it may be. There's going to be a plan for it. The question is if that plan is yours or if it's dictated by somebody other than you, by your heirs, by the government. There's a lot of different things that are going to happen, and so it's important to have these discussions beforehand. When we have a plan, we know exactly what we're working to accomplish. So let's step into the third pillar of our purpose. Again, take a minute and let's think about this. What would you define your purpose as? Or what is purposeful to you? What gives you purpose in your life? After retirement, retirees are often surprised at how much free time they'll actually have. This graph shows time from younger generations progressing to your older generations and how much free time or reported free time they actually have. We call this, in my industry, time affluence. Everybody in retirement is going to be very affluent in their time. So let's break this down into a little bit of math. And if we take 8 hours a day that the average person spends at work, multiply that by 5 days a week, which is the average week, and then times 50 weeks a year, which is what people average work every single year. Now you multiply that by the 20 plus years that you spend in retirement. that you're not working those hours. And that gives you over 40,000 hours of free time that needs to be filled with something. Most of the people I talk to, most of my clients, as they're looking at retirement, they might have a trip or two planned. They want to go on a cruise, they want to go see something they've never seen. A lot of people want to spend time with their grandkids. I am a grandkid. I know my grandma loves me. I doubt she wants to spend 40,000 hours with me. So when we look at it, no matter what we want to do in retirement, we're going to end up with a lot more time than we even realize. Rather than just filling it mindlessly with this time, we can elevate our quality of life by filling the time with something that has meaning and purpose for us. When we asked retirees where they found their greatest sense of purpose, spending time with loved ones was at the top of their list. So we can clearly see how our purpose pillar and our family pillar can be entwined. And whether it's family related by blood or close loved ones, that's what's important that we're spending time with. So time with our loved ones doesn't have to diminish as we also find purpose in our other aspects of life. As I think you'll notice on the list, being financially wealthy also made the list. But as we can see, it is the least important aspect of life. For the people we asked, the portion of life that gave them the least purpose was being financially wealthy. And frankly, whether you have $100 in a box at home or $1 million, it doesn't really matter. What matters is what that money is tied to. The dreams, the goals, the family members, the life we want to live. If we don't have it tied to anything, then it's just a number on a screen nowadays or a stack of paper in a box. So that's where we focus on what is the purpose of that money? What's the purpose of our life? And how do we enhance our purpose of life and what gives us purpose with the wealth that we've accumulated or the wealth that we have? Having a sense of purpose can also help fill the void that comes with isolation. Older adults who live alone spend on average 10 hours every day alone. As humans, we're people, we are creatures who are designed to be with others. Isolation isn't good for us as humans. This becomes much more, as you'll see, much more relevant and much more apparent to older females as well. The female life expectancy is longer, and so we tend to find that older widows tend to spend more time alone, which just isn't a fun situation to be in. So that's where finding purpose can help fill that free time, to help fill that alone time. Many retirees struggle to find a sense of purpose in retirement, and often it's a lack of opportunity, of not knowing where to look or even how to get started. Most people think, where can I go? What can I do? So it's important to start now. If you're pre-retirement, start looking at what's important to you, where you can get involved. Or start looking after retirement at where your skills and your abilities might be able to help out others. When we started to really dive into their interests and their activities, we found that many retirees found their most sense of purpose, aside from their family, into volunteering. Overall, most Americans, any generation, believe that there should be more opportunities for retirees to use their talents and their knowledge to benefit others. And we actually found that younger generations wish they had more opportunities to hear and learn from older generations. But the disconnect we find is typically the older generation doesn't know how or where to get involved, and the younger generation, we don't know how to ask for help. So we don't know how to ask those older than us to give us the knowledge that they've earned throughout their entire life. So this is something that can clearly help shape your vision for retirement. Start thinking now, even if you're in retirement and you have more time, what are your passions? What were your skill sets that you developed through your entire life or your career? Where do you feel like you add value, or what adds value to you? Now, for me personally, some of the people in this room commented as we were standing out there on my boots. Not only do I like boots and I think they look awesome, especially in a suit, I'm actually wearing them for a purpose. My wife and I, we volunteer and support at the J Foundation. I don't know if anyone in this room has heard about the J Foundation, but hopefully people have. At the J Foundation, we focus on suicide awareness and prevention, and we do that through our boots. So when I put on my boots and when I look at them in my closet, it reminds me that I'm loved and I'm cherished. And we use boots to give to other people to help remind them that they're loved and cherished. And it's a great talking point for me to wear and someone to say, hey, fancy boots. And I say, yeah, they are. Let me tell you about them. Because that's part of my purpose. You know, I have a long time left to work. But I know when my working career ends and I'm done with Edward Jones, the things I'm passionate about, like helping others, and boots will continue on. And so for those of you who are pre-retirement time, start to find those things you love. And if you're after retirement time, start to focus on the things you love. Where do you find purpose? Is it a charity? Is it a church? Are you involved in a youth group? Are you involved in helping others? Are you more involved with your family? Focus on those things, because by focusing on our overall purpose, we elevate our entire life. So let's talk about our last pillar, which most of you probably believed would be kind of the focus of my entire presentation, because I'm a financial advisor, and now we're going to talk about finance. Yes, this is what I love. This is what I do for a living, is talking about finance. But I also know that, like we saw before on some of those graphs, this aspect of our life is actually one of the least important. In comparison to our health, our families, our purpose, our finances should only enhance those things. They should never take place of those things. In our study, we asked people, what does money do for you? And how do you define the value of money? So think about that. What does money actually do for you? Like we said before, whether it's $100 or $1 million, what's it actually doing for you? So they told us very clearly, as you can see on this graph, that money provides both security, which is the gold part, and freedom, which is the light blue part. That sense of freedom can be boundless. It can be freedom from lots of different things, freedom from obligations, from worry, from financial stress. But it can also be freedom to do the things we want to do, to travel, to do charity work, to spend time with the grandkids. Take a look at the tiny white section. As we can see, this tiny white section, which is allow me to buy fancy things essentially, is almost unreported. It's the smallest portion up there, one of the smallest portions up there. The overwhelming majority see money as security and freedom. And those are feelings that I believe everybody deserves. You deserve to feel free to live the life you want to live and secure in doing so. As a financial advisor, I get to work every day trying to help people build their financial plans that give them both freedom and security, and to live the retirement of their dreams. That's my goal for all of my clients. But unfortunately, the reality among investors is a little less inspiring. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, only about 1/4 or 1/4 of Americans were actually on track to live the retirement they were dreaming of. They had retirement dreams, but they weren't doing what was necessary to have retirement plans. During the pandemic, 20 million Americans stopped making contributions to their retirement or to planning for the future. Many had to do so for economic reasons, but another huge portion did so because of fear of things. And I understand that. Fear is a very strong factor that drives our life. The unfortunate part, or one of the unfortunate parts of all this, is many of those 20 million people never started making those contributions after pandemic, or in this post-pandemic life that we're in. Clearly, the pandemic, the financial struggles during that time, the volatility and inflation and elections afterwards has led people to have a lot of uncertainty, fear, and concern for what the future may hold. But if you look at this slide, 84% of people who choose to work with a financial advisor say they feel a greater sense of comfort regarding their finances, specifically during the pandemic, during all that chaos. 84% of people said a financial advisor helped them to be more calm. And really, that's a huge part of my job. Yes, I build a plan specific to my clients. I look at different investments. I build a whole portfolio. But one of the biggest portions of my job is being able to help my clients understand those things so they can have confidence. That's my goal in everything I do, is to give people confidence in their financial position, their financial futures. So why, as a financial advisor, are we able to do this for people? Well, I think it's because we're able to look at a little bit bigger picture. We take a long-term approach. It's very easy to be scared and concerned when we look at a singular event and we don't take in consideration that what's happening now isn't going to be what's happening forever. We help you plan for the unexpected. We establish a financial strategy that keeps the unexpected as part of that. So when things happen, because they will happen, life happens to all of us, we're prepared and we're okay. We stay focused on your goals. I focus on my clients' goals and what they're working to accomplish, not what the newest, hottest headline is. Sometimes I have to look at how does that headline affect what we're working for, but most of the time it doesn't. It's new and it's scary now, but it doesn't affect our overall goal or our overall objective we're working for. And I try to help my clients make financially sound decisions, not emotionally driven ones. Like we said before, emotions and finance don't always mix. Fear and finance are never a good mix. So when we're able to look at things more objectively, we're able to look at the bigger picture, we're able to have a little more confidence in the decisions that we make. So this graph here shows, in the dark blue, people who responded having an excellent or very good financial behaviors, and the light blue are those who had behaviors that they reported as good, fair, or even poor. So as you think of your own retirement, whether you're living in it or still preparing for it, what are some of these financial behaviors that correlate with a better quality of life that we can focus on? Which ones can you prioritize for yourself? As we can see here, the number one financial factor related to excellent quality of life in retirement is carrying or maintaining little to no debt, which is a goal we can all work to accomplish. If we've already accomplished it, great, let's maintain it. If we haven't yet, let's build a plan that allows us to do that in our life. But some of the other ones that help us have an elevated quality of life is being actively involved in your financial decisions. Because like I said before, if you don't have a plan for your money, somebody else does. Oftentimes that's an heir or beneficiary. A lot of times it's the government or the law. I want you to have your plan, and that's the plan that we follow. Having and sticking to a budget is important. We need to know what's coming in and what's going out. Working with a financial advisor, having somebody to bounce those ideas off of, to give you confidence that the ideas that you have are great, or to say, hey, let's look at this a different way. And learning more about finance in general. As we all know, there's power in knowledge. Knowledge is power. The more we learn, the more we're able to have that confidence, and the more we're able to make those educated decisions versus those emotional decisions. So we've talked about a lot today. We kind of went through a lot of different pillars and tied them together about how they all help to enhance our life. The vision of your retirement may change over time. Your circumstances will change. A lot of things can change in our life. But no matter what the changes are, having a plan in place and focusing on those 4 key pillars will help elevate your life across the board. So let's recap those really quick. These 4 pillars, health, family, purpose, and finance, will help you work towards that elevated life. Even if you feel like you're doing great, life is good, I'm happy for you. We always have room for improvement. There's always more things we can do to help elevate our life. So having those best years in retirement really comes down as easy as 1, 2, 3. First, we need to work on strengthening our 4 pillars. Look at each one individually and see where we can improve. Then we need to check and stay accountable to our action plan. What do we need to start doing? Or what do we need to stop doing? And let's be accountable. Often that helps by having an accountability partner, a loved one, a financial advisor, somebody who knows what our plan is and can say, hey, I know what your plan is, you're doing great. Or hey, we really need to focus on this. and then asking for the advice and guidance we need to create those things. Again, whether it be a financial advisor, a loved one, an attorney, whoever it may be that can help us in these regards or in each individual aspect, let's talk to them. Let's have that conversation so we can elevate our life. So I know it's been a long day. I appreciate you guys hanging out to be able to, listen to my presentation and take away everything from here. As a small reminder, at our table out there, where I'll be hanging out, if you have any questions at all, we're also doing a little giveaway, a little $50 gift card to Fred Meyer. There's these papers out there that many of you filled out. If you fill them out, fold them up, put them in the bin, you're entered to get the $50 gift card. What's most important is that you fully understand, down here there's a box that says, do you want me to contact you? Just by entering the raffle means that you have no obligation to ever talk to me. If you want to, great, let's have a conversation. If not, check the box, enter to win, and hopefully you win a gift card. So I appreciate you all being here. I'll be out there if you have any questions. So will my office administrator, Lucy. Feel free to ask anything, and please enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Try to keep it quick. No problem. Well, thank you.
Okay, if you have questions for Matt, like he mentioned, he'll be out in the lobby. And just like Matt said, I also want to thank you for sticking around through the whole morning into the afternoon. Thank you so much. Just two quick little plugs. Please make sure that you know what's happening with our Active Aging Week all week long. It's very exciting if you are not in the Twin Falls area, if you're in Rupert, if you're in Buell, wherever you're coming from. Check in with your instructor because they have some fun activities for you to participate in. If you're here in Twin Falls, ours is on Friday. And also for everybody, come on Saturday for our Active Aging fun walk or run if you like to run. We have some great prizes for you at the finish line. So if you'd like to sign up, you can see our booth with Kim. So thank you again for attending. Have a great day.